Hi everybody, this is Chris from Skeleton Labs. In case you're not familiar with me, I'm actually the creator and core maintainer for Skeleton, an open source UI toolkit for the Svelte ecosystem. You can see the website presented here on the screen. We just have, a lot of things that you would maybe kind of be expecting from a UI toolkit. Components, utilities, for things like, pop-up modals and theme systems, just a lot of really kind of cool and interesting stuff. Kind of our sort of what kind of makes us special is that we pair Svelte and Tailwind to handle styling and the styling system. And so if you haven't checked it out, definitely go to skeleton.dev and take a look. What I'm kind of using this video for today is to kind of showcase that two things. One, that hey, we've got a major version coming soon called Skeleton v3. It's going to be kind of a total rewrite from the ground up. Lots of improvements to the theme system, color system, lots of different kind of typography stuff, new elements and components, and just lots of really kind of cool new features, including kind of a cool new design. So you can see we have different themes and lots of different styling and just there's a lot to kind of digest. Definitely kind of come check out the websites if you haven't already. The focus of today's video, though, is not Skeleton per se, but the new project that I'm here to announce. So very excited to announce that we are now working on a new open source project called Floating UI Svelte. And so if you're not familiar with Floating UI, this is an existing tool that you might have seen their website or come across them in some regard. It's kind of the spiritual successor for Popper.js if you've been around in the web dev world for a long time. Really great tool for like overlays and kind of positioning modals and drop downs and just kind of any sort of overlaid element that you might have in your application. They have some really great demos on their website. Highly recommend kind of coming and checking those out. You can see drop downs, you can see menus, just a good slew of options. The really cool thing with Floating UI is they provide kind of this rudimentary kind of DOM package that just handles like all of the math and the computing for all of this. They have this like modular system for middleware, so you can handle things like flipping the pop over to the correct size whenever it kind of gets too close to the edge or something like that. And just like a lot of really kind of cool low-level features. They also, if you're coming from the React world, have kind of a wrapper package that they take and apply a number of React hooks. So think of these as like utility features that simplify and kind of provide a slimmer or simpler API for interfacing with Floating UI, including some of the interactions and closing and showing and hiding and tracking events for when an overlay element appears or something like that. Accessibility stuff. There's a whole slew of options that they provide in their website. Definitely, again, kind of come check that out, take a look. So what we're introducing, however, is the kind of Svelte equivalent to this, because they provide bindings and kind of a package for React. They provide bindings for Vue, but unfortunately they just have not had a chance to look at Svelte. And given that Skeleton has a kind of a rich history in the Svelte ecosystem, we're very keen to kind of fill in that gap and so sort of bring those tools over. And so this is kind of a twofold sort of solution. One, it kind of solves problems that we have for Skeleton, because we clearly have like popover elements and these kind of floating elements and modals and things like that we need to be able to handle. And it's just generally in the Svelte community, this is a really cool tool to be able to use. And having to kind of go to the low level and using the compute methods and stuff like that directly, it's possible to do in Svelte, and it definitely does work. And we've used it with some great success. But going forwards with Skeleton v3, we've kind of made the decision to essentially kind of create this Svelte specific wrapper ourselves. So the result of that is this. It's the Floating UI Svelte project, which I just was mentioning. We have a package. We've got of course the website here. I'll link this in the video description and any kind of written post that goes out alongside this video. But we've provided this to kind of show you a little bit of what we're kind of cooking behind the scenes. And so if you come in here, you're going to see we've got like sections for a tooltip, popovers, modals, context menus. Most of these sections are kind of marked coming soon. They're not completed. They're not live. But we've done a little bit of work on the tooltip sections just to be able to show you kind of a proof of concept today. And so if you are coming from the Svelte world, this is going to be basically a preview of the new package or new tooling that we are building that is going to fill in that gap and make it much easier for you to use Floating UI. And so what we've done is provide some documentation here. It details like what is a tooltip, how does it operate, what is the kind of rules behind that. We've provided an actual kind of preview here, a live preview. So you can see as I hover this little button here, you're going to see this menu appear. It's got a few things that if you're coming from Skeleton, or if you're coming from doing some of this directly, you're going to maybe notice some small touches there, like the animations and the fade and stuff like that. It's a little bit different, a little bit unique from what you may have seen in the past from us. And so what we're doing here is using a combination of, again, this new kind of Svelte UI Svelte package, or excuse me, Floating UI Svelte package, and also pairing that with some features that come from Svelte itself. And so if I switch over to the code view, you're going to see we're actually importing the fade transition from Svelte, and then importing kind of our own set of kind of features and modules and things like that mixed between Floating UI and also, you know, our tooling. And then we have kind of a bunch of boilerplate here. Don't let this kind of scare you. There's a lot going on here, but you know, this is highly configurable. Everything's broken down into small modules to allow you to kind of set up. Okay, I want to have interactions. I want to have hover. I want to have animations. I want to control the state. I want to control, you know, this middleware of, you know, does it flip, or is there an arrow displayed? Like, even though it looks like a very simple demo, there's a lot kind of going on behind the scenes to power that. And again, we're showing off some of the initial features that we're kind of putting out and kind of rolling out for preview today to just kind of see what that looks like. We've documented a lot of the process here. If you're kind of curious, you can kind of come through and read through this later, kind of see what's going on behind the scenes. Definitely take a look at the code snippet. But before I get too far, I do want to kind of showcase a couple things. And so what I've done is I've pulled up just a local instance of this project, and I've got the code that's actually powering the preview that you're seeing right here. And so I'm just going to change a couple things. And so with just a couple quick settings, I can say maybe like disable this arrow here. Let's say, let me take off. I'm going to move it here, and I'm going to remove it from here, from the middleware. And then we're going to see when I hover that, there's no arrow. So again, what I was just saying, it's configurable. There's lots and lots of stuff going on in there. Some of it's optional, some of it's very easy to change. I'm using the transition, so if we want like a really long, kind of overly obnoxious, you know, fade in and fade out, we can change some of that. Let's see, what else can we do? We're kind of mixing in some just basic HTML and CSS in here. We're using Tailwind for our styling, but Tailwind is not required for this. Just heads up, especially for folks that are coming from the Skeleton world. We use Tailwind a lot, so I think a lot of folks kind of get used to that. But this project is first and foremost built specifically for solving problems with Floating UI. So again, so just some cool stuff with there. But I did want to walk you through the fact that we are kind of bringing in a set of imports. Again, some of these are a mix from Floating UI and a mix from our project. Anything you see is like use this, use that. Those are the hooks that we're kind of imitating or replicating for our project. We're doing several kind of element references, which if you've done that in Svelte, it may look familiar. You're going to also notice that we're using state runes, which is a good indicator of, hey, this is actually being built with Svelte 5 in mind. So if you're somebody that's been kind of eyeing the kind of new major version of Svelte that's coming out soon, please note that we are fully supporting that right out of the gate. And then let's just kind of look through a couple of the settings here. And so use floating is the kind of main hook that you use to set up your, any kind of floating element. Think of this as the place that you provide your core configuration for whatever you're going to display on the screen. So by default, we're matching the same kind of property names that you see in the floating UI documentation. So if we come over here and we look at, oh, I don't know, use floating, and you see these list of options here, things like placement, strategy, transform, middleware. All of these options are available here. And so you can see one of the simplest ones, placement, it's set to top, which means that when we hover this, you're going to see it kind of appear at the top. If I switch this to, I don't know, let's go left and save that, you're going to see now it appears over on the left. And it does a few things. It positions it over the left. It makes sure it centers everything properly. It works with the scroll, which is really nice. And then even that little arrow that appears kind of repositions itself. So if you've ever set something up like this custom, you may start realizing like how amazing some of this is, how many features are actually kind of operating here under the hood. We're controlling the open and closed state here with a couple properties. We're kind of giving references to what is the main reference, which is the button, and what is the floating element, which is the thing that kind of pops up here. I'm going to put this back on top. And then middleware kind of is the stuff I mentioned a moment ago. We're just using that straight from floating UI. So any of the middleware you see here, you can come in and if you're curious to say, oh, what is offset, or what is shift, or what is flip? They have some really great documentation to see some of that. But right now we've got flip implemented. I'm actually going to disable it just so you can kind of see what it looks like without. So if I do this, you're going to see as I get kind of towards the top of the page, let's see if I can do it. See how it's kind of going off at the top of the page? If I put flip back on, which is, again, middleware is coming straight from floating UI, it will now kind of reposition itself and flip itself down to the bottom. So again, it's not just straight up replacement for floating UI, it's a way to augment and simplify. If you were trying to write everything that's actually kind of happening behind the scenes or under the hood for this, you would come to realize that, hey, this is a pretty complex amount of features and options that are being provided. Like just kind of browsing the hook really quickly here, you're going to see there's quite a bit going on there. So, it really is a pretty nice abstraction. It's more verbose if you're coming from the skeleton world. It's a little bit more verbose than our sort of popover feature in Skeleton V2. But again, the complexity is essentially endless with this. And there's still kind of that room for abstraction if you really kind of want to go that approach, ways to simplify this down. But again, we're just kind of exposing all of the same properties that floating UI React does, just with a nice, Svelte port and supporting Svelte features and Svelte kind of flows and patterns and things like that you may be used to. A couple other things here before I kind of just wrap this up. I want to show that we are kind of using the use interactions approach, which is how you handle things like hover events, click outside. So if you have a modal and you click outside of that, how some of that is handled, and even accessibility is part of this. So you can see we're actually setting a role of tooltip when this is being assigned. So if we were to look at the code for that kind of hovered element, that little tooltip there, you're going to see it's going to add that role for accessibility purposes, which is really nice because Skeleton is very big on accessibility, and we don't want any of that lost as part of this translation. In the template itself, there's a few things going on. Again, I've got some extra styles and stuff here that you can kind of ignore. Those are not really important to what's going on here. But you're going to see two things that are really kind of key here. One is the trigger, or the reference, or button in this case, which we are binding and kind of passing a reference up to use floating. We're actually pulling in some settings from kind of imported from our interaction set, which is kind of handling a lot of that kind of hover state and all of that for us. So you'll notice we're not setting up like, hey, when this thing triggers, or when you're are hovering or not hovering, we're just basically saying use hover, we're providing the context, and then we're grabbing the state from interactions and we're spreading it onto the button. And that's it. That's all you have to do. So it's a very simple process, and you're doing a lot of the same patterns over and over, which I think folks are going to really kind of appreciate and really enjoy. If we look at the floating element itself, it's pretty simple. It's set to a div here. We've got binding, for the element to kind of reference, hey, this particular element, the styles that are being calculated, any of the interaction stuff that's being handled, that's going to be passed to this as well. And then we have the open state, which is again just kind of using an open Boolean state for a state rune here from Svelte 5. and then the contents that we want to drop and display. And then the floating arrow here is actually a component that we're importing from Floating UI Svelte. And so it gets some context, some information it needs to know to kind of reposition itself, but that's the gist of it. So, again, there's a lot kind of going on here. This is like a full, demo, but I did want to kind of just point out some of the little like niceties and sort of the just kind of scratch the surface there to kind of pique your interest and see kind of the amount of configuration and amount of options that are available. So just to kind of let you know where we are with things, as per the early part of this video, today is the announcement. This is the first time we're actually showing anything for this. We've been kind of teasing it in the skeleton community, but we wanted to kind of just get the word out. We're going to be sharing this video in the skeleton community, but I do kind of encourage you, if you're from the Svelte world or you know folks in the Svelte community, please do go and share this. We want people to know that this tool exists and it's coming, and that we are looking for contributors. So we need some folks to kind of help us build out the rest of what's there. We've made a tremendous amount of progress. Everything you see here is just a couple weeks worth of work. So really impressive. Shout out to Abdel and Hugo for just doing an amazing job with what we have already. But we still need some features that are missing. You can see like we're calling out like a dismiss feature that doesn't exist yet, and some other things that we really want to get done. So again, kind of help us kind of get the word out there and let folks know that, hey, this is coming and this is something we want to do. As far as features to actually work on, of course, you can come to the website, click the GitHub link, and that will take you here. You can look at the list of issues. We have a number of issues open, and just kind of feature requests for a transition hook, a dismiss hook, and different features. We are welcoming folks to come in and say, hey, I'm interested in contributing, and kind of work with us to kind of figure out, who's working on what. We're happy to kind of assign that. There are more advanced features right now with a lot of these hooks, but there's also some smaller, lower hanging stuff, like just helping us kind of set up like contribution guidelines and helping everybody get organized. So if you're interested in any portion of that, please do reach out either kind of on GitHub, or again, this is related to the skeleton community, either on our main website or our new website. You're going to see a Discord link just kind of linked up here, this little icon. Just tap that. That's going to take you into our Discord. And then we have a dedicated channel called Floating UI Svelte. So please join the Discord, check it out, ask any questions you have. Again, reach out where, either myself or Hugo or someone else that's contributing to the project's happy to help. And, let us know what you think. We are very excited to get this in your hands. It's not quite ready for, it's not an alpha or anything like that yet, but we're kind of fast approaching that, and we really want to kind of get that to everybody as soon as possible. So hopefully in maybe a couple more weeks, we can start looking at something like that. So if you're interested in trying this, again, I want to kind of put forth that this is not a skeleton specific feature. This is a feature just for anybody using Svelte. So if you're using Svelte or SvelteKit or something like that, you're not using skeleton at all, you're not using Tailwind, totally fine. All of these features that you're seeing demoed, all of this will work in your project. So again, if you're interested, please come check it out, and love to see what you think.